We have all hit a digital wall. You fill out a long form, make one typo, and the whole page clears itself. You open a menu to find 40 tiny links crammed together, or tap repeatedly on a button too small to hit accurately. This digital friction causes the exact same visceral frustration as watching heavy machinery violently grind to a halt. Then you open an app that works differently. The layout makes sense immediately. The buttons are placed where your fingers naturally rest, and the system anticipates your next move. This ease of use is a deliberate construction. Designers spend thousands of hours mapping eye movements and finger reach to ensure no part of the interface resists the user. The people responsible for these spaces are user experience or UX designers. While they work with pixels, they function as architects of human behavior. Their medium is human psychology. They take the technical requirements of software and shape them to fit the way our minds naturally process information. Every digital layout accounts for a biological limitation called cognitive load. This is the finite amount of mental energy your brain can spend on processing information before it becomes exhausted. This diagram represents our working memory capacity. Since the 1950s, research has shown that the average person can only hold roughly 7 items in their active memory at once. Adding an 8th input triggers an overload, causing us to lose track of the original information. The UX designer builds a shield against this limit, organizing the interface so the user is never forced to memorize more than the brain can handle. They apply Hicks' law to solve this. By grouping those 7 individual items into 3 clear categories, the time it takes for a user to make a decision drops. The brain stabilizes because it's processing fewer distinct units. They also use Fitz's law to manage physical effort. This principle requires that the most important actions, like a buy or submit button, are given the largest interactive area and placed where a user's hand can reach them with the least amount of travel. When these cognitive and physical limits are respected, a complex task feels like a smooth, effortless glide. Designers also influence how we see, using Gestalt principles to guide our eyes across a screen. In this scatter plot, your brain starts to group items together simply because of their proximity to one another. Designers use this to signal that different buttons or text blocks are related without needing to draw a box around them. The principle of similarity takes this further. When objects share a color or shape, the brain assumes they perform the same function, creating a readable hierarchy before a single word is read. This leads to the aesthetic usability effect. Humans are biased to perceive polished, visually balanced designs as being more functional than cluttered ones. When an interface looks professional, users are more likely to forgive small errors and stay engaged with a process that might otherwise feel tedious. Once the user begins an action, the designer maintains confidence through micro-interactions. These are the small responses we often take for granted: the haptic buzz when you pull to refresh a feed, a loading bar that moves steadily, or a button that changes color when your cursor hovers over it. Without these cues, we're left guessing if a tap actually worked. They provide the immediate confirmation needed to keep the user moving forward. By combining these visual cues and feedback loops, the designer creates a system that feels responsive to the user's presence. These interactions determine how we remember an experience, following a psychological pattern called the peak-end rule. This timeline shows how we record memories. The brain ignores the average moments and judges the entire experience by its most intense emotional peak and its final moment. UX designers apply this by placing a moment of satisfaction at the end of a journey, like a clear, celebratory confirmation screen after a long checkout process. Ensuring the final interaction is positive anchors the memory of the entire event. It's what turns a single transaction into a sense of trust in the product. By engineering these peaks and finishes, designers encourage users to return to the app until the interaction becomes an effortless habit. While engineers focus on code and executives on revenue, the UX designer is tasked with ensuring technology remains compatible with the person using it. They replace the guesswork of personal opinion with research-backed science to predict how we will behave. It is a profession that requires balancing empathy for the user with the hard data of cognitive science. There is a paradox in this work. A UX designer's greatest success is an interface so well attuned to the human mind that the person using it never notices it was designed at all. They provide the invisible framework that allows technology to follow human nature, rather than forcing people to adapt to the logic of a machine.